Are you serious?
Yeah.
So I love my man, but what you mean, but? Stop ignoring the red flags in your relationship and thinking you can change a man.
The courtroom was silent, tense, holding its breath as the woman in the ivory suit took the stand. Flashbulbs from outside still lit the hallway like a lightning storm, and whispers darted between rows like mice. Marjorie Harvey, yes, that Marjorie, had just stepped into the center of the Diddy trial and flipped the entire scandal on its head. Her voice barely wavered as she looked toward the jury and said it. She was not a socialite dragged into the spotlight. She was a victim. According to her sworn testimony, the private parties, the opulent gatherings, the whispers of coercion and control, she claimed she didn't go willingly. She said she was forced. And she pointed her manicured finger not just at Sean Diddy Combs, but at her own husband, Steve Harvey. Hollywood gasped, and not just from the Chanel perfume.
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
She said Steve had pushed her into those rooms, handed her to those circles, that he encouraged her to show up, smile, blend in, play the role. And when she tried to pull away, the implication was that her silence came with strings, tight ones. The courtroom murmured as Marjorie painted herself as another casualty in Diddy's orbit, a woman trapped in a world she never chose. But here's where things get even messier. No one seems to believe her, not the fans, not the blogs, not even some of her so-called friends in high places. Instead of sympathy, she's getting scourged. Twitter lit up with cries of, she's just trying to clean her name, and why now? People aren't seeing a victim, they're seeing a strategist, a woman distancing herself from a crumbling empire before it buries her in the rubble. Because let's be honest, Marjorie Harvey didn't exactly arrive on the Hollywood scene by accident. And if you believe the swirling rumors, she wasn't just around those infamous parties, she was inside them, enjoying the luxuries, posing for the cameras, sharing tables with moguls. And now, when Diddy's empire is in freefall, when testimonies include words like freak-offs and surveillance footage shows him laying hands on Cassie in a hallway, suddenly Marjorie's waving the victim flag? People are skeptical. They're digging into her past, pulling up names like Jim Townsend and Donnell Woods, two men with long shadows and longer rap sheets. One of them even claimed, years ago, that the FBI had enough evidence on Marjorie to indict her, but he took a deal to protect her. Why? That's the million-dollar question. Or maybe the $200 million one, if the divorce rumors have any teeth.
How many people came through his orbit? How many people could this have happened to? And how did he get away with it for so long?
And don't forget, this is a woman who stood by Steve Harvey through thick and thin, through 2 ex-wives, multiple lawsuits, and a whole carousel of public blunders. The one who sat front row in couture while the rest of us were trying to figure out what Steve meant when he said he was still shining. So now, when she turns around and says he was the one who handed her over to Diddy's circle, that's not just betrayal, it's strategy. Or at least, that's how a growing segment of the internet sees it. They're saying she's rewriting the past before it rewrites her, that she knows Diddy is radioactive and she's trying to pull a parachute before the legal fallout lands on her Birkin. Because this trial isn't just about Diddy anymore. The minute Marjorie Harvey took that oath and started talking, the Harvey name got stitched into the narrative. And people are already digging deeper than ever. The whispers that Steve might have known more than he let on, they're getting louder. There are claims, never officially confirmed, but whispered like gospel, that Steve worked overtime to scrub Marjorie's name from old records, that his wealth and pool weren't just for talk shows and pageants, that there were favors, cover-ups, a few misplaced files. We're talking about a man who once joked about writing the book on how men think. Now people are wondering just how much he knew and whether he played fixer for his wife's past.
They were referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest or guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil Astroglide.
And speaking of pasts, Lori Harvey's name is back in the headlines too, tangled up in its own brand of speculation. Everyone remembers those 2019 photos, the cozy dinners in Italy, the hand-in-hand strolls in New York, the matching outfits at that reggae festival in Miami, the ones where Diddy and Lori looked like a couple, even as she denied it, and the public kept whispering, "Didn't his son first?" Steve never commented back then, maybe because he couldn't, maybe because he knew the optics would be impossible. And now, with Marjorie testifying under oath that Diddy's world was one of manipulation and pressure, the timeline starts to look queasy. Was Lori being groomed into that world too? Did her stepmother know more than she let on?
Oh, God, let's hope so.
It's not just one scandal, it's layers, a house of cards that seems to be swaying with every courtroom revelation. And right in the middle of it is Marjorie, standing tall, serene, calculated, telling her truth, or, as some are claiming, constructing a new one. There are receipts being pulled, old articles resurfacing, and ex-husbands posting cryptic memoir teasers online. Even Jim Townsend, the man who once wore the label of a major smuggler, is name-dropping his ex-wife like she's got unfinished business. He claims he wrote most of his book while in prison, and guess what? A chunk of it, apparently, focuses on Marjorie and how close she came to facing charges of her own. If that's true, then Steve didn't just marry into glamour, he married into heat. And now that heat is burning through the courtroom. Prosecutors haven't said whether they'll follow Marjorie's claims with further investigation, but you can bet someone's taking notes. Because when a high society name steps onto the stand and suddenly rewrites her role from attendee to victim, people start wondering what else is being edited. Especially when her husband, one of the most recognizable faces on television, is still publicly insisting we're fine.
It was like, wow, for Diddy? What? You know, that was a person that I looked up to. He was a mogul, and I listened to all the artists that he made superstars. And so to have a chance to be able to be signed to him, it was amazing. It was like, oh my God, I'm here. I finally did it.
But what if they're not? What if the quiet power couple image was just the packaging and inside was something much darker? People who once defended Marjorie are flipping fast. They're saying she knew what kind of parties she was walking into, that she wasn't dragged, she RSVP'd. The image of her as a pawn is starting to crack, replaced with something sharper. And the most cynical voices are even asking, what if she's not afraid of Diddy at all, but of what he might reveal about her? Because here's the twist in all this. What if Marjorie's appearance in court isn't about seeking justice, but about getting ahead of the next bombshell? What if she knew the subpoenas were coming, the lawsuits multiplying, and the walls closing in? What if her testimony was a preemptive strike? A calculated effort to place herself in the narrative before someone else did it for her. Because let's face it, once those federal raids on Diddy's home started, once over 60 suits poured in from both men and women, nobody in his circle was going to come out clean. So maybe Marjorie figured she had two options, be named by someone else or raise her hand first.
Afraid of coming forward. They've been afraid of what he could potentially do to them within the industry, what he could do to them professionally, maybe even personally. And so yes, it's been a dark secret they've held on to for a very, very long time.
And that's why people are watching Steve Harvey now closer than ever. Every Instagram post, every speech, every carefully worded denial is being dissected. Is he protecting his wife or protecting himself? Did he know about the parties, the guests, the alliances? Some insiders say yes. Others say Steve turned a blind eye in exchange for a pristine public image and a quiet home life. But the court of public opinion is less forgiving, especially now that the headlines are no longer about cheating rumors or awkward vacation photos. They're about courtrooms, witness lists, and ties to a man facing decades behind bars. And the question that's now hanging in the air, unspoken but deafening, how much farther does this go? If Marjorie's telling the truth, then what else is still buried? And if she's not, what else has she covered up? And more importantly, how far did Steve go to keep those secrets hidden?
He cornered me. And then he asked me, with his arm up, he asked me, how you doing? I'm kind of like, wow, what the heck? Very uncomfortable. And then he rubbed his hand down my breast. He said, if you need anything at all, you let me know.
And then there's Lori, Marjorie's youngest daughter and Steve's stepdaughter, glamorous, poised, and for a hot minute, very publicly linked to Sean Diddy Combs himself. That pairing raised eyebrows from the jump, not just because of the jaw-dropping age gap. Diddy was nearly 50, Lori barely in her 20s. But because of who he was, a man already known for running elite circles, and now we know allegedly using them for much darker purposes. So how does a woman like Marjorie, who claims she was traumatized by Diddy's world, turn around and let her daughter walk straight into it? That's the question no one seems willing to answer, but everyone's asking. And the deeper we dig, the more it looks like this wasn't just some young romance. It may have been a move.
Oh, our next guest is one of the most talked about influencers, a model and entrepreneur, out with her very first.
Let's not forget Lori had been spotted with Justin Combs, Diddy's own son, just before she was linked to the mogul himself. That's not gossip, that's timeline. And then suddenly, she's photographed hand in hand with Diddy in matching outfits, vacationing with her parents in Italy. It wasn't just tolerated, it was endorsed. Steve and Marjorie were literally sitting across the lunch table, sipping sparkling water while their daughter got cozy with a man already known for disturbing party rumors and silence-inducing settlements. And yet, no one said a word, not until the court cases exploded years later. Now it all feels different. Now people are re-examining those lunches in Capri and asking, was this about love or leverage?
Because I'm not, the typical model height or model size. I'm 5'3.5". I like to say 5'4".
There's a theory bubbling in certain LA circles, one that refuses to go away, that Marjorie didn't just know about Lori's relationship with Diddy, she positioned her for it. That keeping Diddy close wasn't just a social flex, it was a calculated move to maintain proximity to money, influence, and the doors that open only when you play the game. Lori had access. That's not speculation, it's verified by cameras, appearances, and insiders who say she was always welcomed in Diddy's space. But what kind of mother allows her daughter to entertain that proximity, knowing the man's reputation, especially if she herself is now claiming to be one of his victims? The contradiction is loud, and it's pulling focus away from the testimony and onto the truth behind the curtain. And that's exactly where the trail leads, back to Marjorie's curtain, because this isn't her first ride through scandal, and it certainly isn't her first connection to men who live on the edge of legality. Before she was Marjorie Harvey, queen of fashion tours and yacht selfies, she was Marjorie Bridges, married not once, but twice, to men who've both served serious time. Jim Townsend, her first husband, wasn't just caught dabbling, he was sentenced to life for attempting to traffic nearly 40 kilos of an illegal substance. Life. That's not a misunderstanding or a wrong place, wrong time situation. That's major business. And according to Townsend himself, the FBI had enough evidence on Marjorie to take her down too. He said in an interview that he took a plea deal partly to protect her. And that says a lot.
And you can't live your life based on what other people are gonna think, how other people are gonna feel, because at the end of the day, it's your life. Right. So it's gonna make you happy.
She filed for divorce less than 5 years into Townsend's sentence. And just when people thought she might turn the page, she married another known smuggler. Donnell Woods. Not only was he connected to similar trafficking circles, but he's also the father of Lori Harvey. That means Lori, now entangled in Diddy's timeline, was born into a legacy of high-risk liaisons and whispered deals. From birth, her orbit was filled with the kind of men who operated in shadows, and it was Marjorie who navigated them all. That's not coincidence, that's a pattern. And now, with Diddy's trial dragging everyone back into the spotlight, the past she's kept buried is clawing its way to the surface, loud, public, and damning.
What I wanted at 21, I don't want at 25.
Right.
I don't even know her anymore. Yeah, I don't know who she is.
So when Marjorie sat on that witness stand and claimed victimhood, when she said she was pulled into those parties against her will, there were plenty of people in that courtroom quietly asking, is she afraid for herself? Or afraid that the truth about her past is finally catching up? Because if she's truly innocent, her record doesn't exactly reflect a life spent running from danger. It looks a lot more like she's been drawn to it, over and over again. And now, when the empire she quietly aligned herself with is imploding in slow motion, she's suddenly turning state's witness? Timing like that doesn't go unnoticed in Hollywood. It's also interesting to note that even with our deeply unnaturally skilled fire builders, there are way too many wide world, dancing masters and figures to just the bigger picture starts to look twisted. A woman with 2 former spouses in federal custody. A daughter involved with a man accused of orchestrating elaborate coercion rings. A husband scrambling to protect his brand while pretending everything's just fine. And now, a courtroom moment that smells more like self-preservation than moral awakening. The narrative she's trying to push, that she was used and discarded, is starting to fray. Because for someone who claims to have been forced into Diddy's world, she sure stayed close to it for a very long time.
I think that was it for me. I think because I was young, I was still trying to figure out who I was and what do I like and what don't I like.
For someone like Marjorie Harvey, the art of image crafting wasn't just a lifestyle, it was survival. For decades, she sculpted herself into a vision of elegance and exclusivity, a woman draped in designer labels and whispered about in the language of high society. But behind the curated posts and glossy magazine spreads, insiders say there was always a hum of tension, an invisible tightrope stretched between 2 worlds, one foot in glamour, the other in the shadows of her former life. That psychological strain of knowing what you've buried while building a brand on everything it contradicts doesn't vanish just because you've made it to the front row of Fashion Week. In fact, it only grows heavier, more fragile. The cost of maintaining that double life it may have led her right back into the fire she thought she'd escaped.
To like check me and be like, hey, like, what you doing? You good? You need to shake out of it. And maybe be like, okay, yeah, you're right, I'm tripping. I'm good, regardless.
We have to ask, when Marjorie agreed to show up at those parties, did she feel like she had a choice? Or was she operating under a kind of psychological inertia, a decades-long campaign to outpace her past, to stay polished and protected no matter what it took? Keeping up appearances in a world where perception is currency may have meant aligning with power, even if that power came with strings. And when the walls started closing in, when Diddy's empire began to crack, perhaps the pressure of the double life became too much. That courtroom moment, the tearful testimony, the pivot from silent partner to self-proclaimed survivor, it might not just be strategy. It might be the collapse of a persona she could no longer hold together. Still, not everyone sees fragility, some see precision. To live that many years with secrets under your feet and never once trip, that takes skill. That takes calculation. If the double life was exhausting, it was also effective. And the sudden shift to victim could be read not as a breakdown, but a pivot, a move designed to keep her just ahead of the fallout. After all, when someone spends years turning narrative into power, it's hard to believe anything is accidental. The real question may not be whether she was broken by the pressure, but whether she learned long ago how to make pressure work for her. And still, the questions multiply. What did Steve Harvey really know about Marjorie's history when he married her? Did he help bury it, as some insiders suggest? Or was he simply caught in a web spun long before he entered the picture? And what about those rumors that Steve used his money and media pull to smooth over legal snags in her past? Are those just online chatter, or is there more to uncover? Because from the outside, it's all looking like a carefully crafted image, a family that sold elegance and wisdom to the public while hiding decades of alliances that now lead straight to federal indictments and celebrity disgrace.
I thought he was this clean businessman who rise to the top because he was such a powerful and smart, educated man. I had no idea that he had this other side to him. And when I started to get exposed to his lifestyle, I started to really realize, like, this guy has an addiction. It's not just, once every few weeks, it's every day, every hour.
Let's not forget, Marjorie Harvey built her brand on being the epitome of grace, refinement, and next-level taste. But taste doesn't protect you from subpoenas, and grace doesn't undo a paper trail, especially when your name is being whispered in the same breath as underground connections and sealed deals. And now, when Diddy is facing sentencing, and the public is no longer buying polished statements, Marjorie stepping forward feels less like confession and more like insurance. The kind you cash in when you know the house is on fire. What's next for her remains unclear. The legal system has not hinted at any charges against Marjorie, at least not yet. But public opinion is shifting fast, and if more names start surfacing, if others step forward with stories of what they saw, what they were told, and who was in the room, we might be looking at the early stages of another celebrity downfall, one that's been 2 decades in the making. Because as more people scrutinize who surrounded Diddy during his alleged reign of manipulation, the spotlight turns back to the ones who smiled beside him and said nothing. And now we're left to wonder, was Marjorie Harvey simply trying to survive in a world ruled by dangerous men? Or has she, all along, been quietly playing the game better than anyone else? Is she the ultimate victim of Hollywood's dark underbelly, or the mastermind behind one of the slickest image makeovers we've ever seen? One thing's for sure, in a town built on illusion, the truth is far more twisted than anyone could imagine. What do you believe? Drop your theories in the comments, because we're just getting started. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and don't let the glam fool you.